Ah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Steve, welcome to the Real Estate Mavericks. And I was going through your background here. Your company's got over $2 billion in transactions and 40 plus years in the business for yourself. That is a serious body of work here. And a lot of people listening can learn from this. Your leadership at the level that you've taken this. Um, Yeah, and so what stood out to me most, I think, is not just kind of the volume of what you've done, obviously, but it's the range, domestic, international, hospitality, industrial, and working with global investors out of Beijing, Shanghai. That's a very unique vantage point. All right.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
yeah, and so, yeah, one of the questions I really like to ask here, Steve, would be, what was the original defining moment for you that kind of sparked you to get on the career that you did? What was it? Was it a beacon of light that all of a sudden hit you, or how was it for you when you chose your field that you've succeeded in incredibly here?
well, it started with my folks. My mom came over when she was 14 from Malta, and so English wasn't her first language. She became a U.S. citizen, and education was really important to her. So, she sent me and my siblings to private schools. But my parents bought a lot of property as I was growing up, from multifamily stuff to mobile home parks and partnerships that they were involved in. And I would go to these meetings as a teen and listen to the brokers and the principals there, and then have to go back that night and explain what they were saying to my mom that night, right? So I got a
Wow.
taste of real estate negotiations and real estate numbers. And
Hmm.
my dad was very kind of detailed. Coming from the Air Force and everything, he was really into numbers, and so it. I just got drawn to it, and in college, that was kind of what I wanted to do. I was a finance major and got out, and I think I got my license when I was 21 years old, and I went to the privilege of going to a very private school that
Yeah.
most of the landowners sent their kids to here locally, and which wasn't Silicon Valley at the time. And we ended up selling farms and ranches to developers, and that evolved into having the owner say, "Well, see, why don't we just build the building and you lease it for us?" And that's how that kind of all evolved, right? And so
Wow.
when it turned from industrial places or R&D places to multifamily was the flavor of the month, and we were helping them get entitlements and build multifamilies, complexes. And that's kind of how my career, I was more client driven by what asset type they wanted, and we would
Hmm.
put the teams together, right? And I was very
Okay.
fortunate with the schools I went to that a lot of the guys stayed local, and we enlisted their help that was in the business, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. So you've been at it successfully a long time here, with a lot of experience. And what were some of those early lessons that you learned in real estate and in life that still hold true today as part of what has made you who you are?
I'd have to say the education and experience from people who really knew what they're doing. I would give up half or more of the deal to bring in more experienced players, on the deal. I had good friends that were specialized in industrial, and they were brokers. I bring them in on the deal, learn from them, and it was that way all the way around. From whether it was a development deal or whether it was hospitality. I remember some of the first hospitality deals hiring a consultant, and we paid them actually by the hour to help us walk through everything and what needed to be done. So,
Nice.
but education
Nice.
it's, I think, highly underrated for the new people coming in. You know, they're so focused on making the dollar that really, if they focus more on the education, that those dollars will come
Yeah,
down the
yeah.
road, right?
Well, it certainly proved it with you. You got CEO and managing broker, Oxbridge International, and I, yeah. Hey, can you go through uh, one of your tough times here? It's never all roses for anyone involved in real estate. That's what I've found, and for myself too.
Yeah.
Um, can you go through one time when you got perhaps you
Yeah.
bit off more than you could chew, or things just didn't turn
Well,
out quite the way everyone planned, and how you responded?
so there was it was 0809, right? The worst financial crisis of our country, right at the time. And Bank of
Hmm.
America was taking back a lot of foreclosures. And I was contacted by a large group that wanted to buy, we called it tapes, right? Basically
The
200
tapes.
REOs per quarter, right?
Yes.
And they were committing to that, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars to do this. And we dropped everything to help them on this, flying back and forth to Southern California, dealing with B of A's risk management people. And 10 months into this deal that would have been very lucrative on our end as well, B of A, I remember, I'll never forget, it was because Halloween Day, they called up and says, Steve, the deal's done. And I said, well, thank goodness, we've been at it for 10 months. He goes, no, you don't get it. He goes, we're not moving forward. The feds had stepped in. We're not going to be allowed to sell these REOs in bulk to any group. And so that deal imploded. Well, we had, we put 100% of our time into that year, and that ended up being the
Wow.
worst financial year of my life because the deal that we worked on exclusively imploded. Right. So
Yep.
that was a
Yep.
big lesson learned that you can't ever depend on one deal. You constantly got to feed the pipeline, and no deal size is too small, right? Revenue is revenue. In order to do the big deals, when I managed that division for Berkshire Hathaway was, explaining to my guys the deal is a deal regardless of the size. You got to keep revenue going, or you can't do those big deals. You'll die on the vine. So
Nice. Hmm.
one of the biggest mistake I made, and this was years, probably 20 years into my career or more, that I learned that lesson. And we're always learning lessons, right?
Yeah.
We're constantly having to retool, right? The market's been very difficult for commercial these last few years because capital has basically been sitting on the sidelines,
Hmm. Hmm.
traditional sources of capital. So you've got to find other funding mechanisms for your deals. And a lot of it is getting to be, we just finished our company Zoom meeting minutes ago, and we're talking about most of our deals now are either all cash or the buyers are self-funded or their seller carries.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, you've seen multiple real estate cycles here, booms, the '08, the '09. I've seen them too. The
Yeah.
resets. Is you'd mentioned how revenue is revenue, and telling your team go for it, to get that revenue no matter what the economy's doing. Is that the main lesson that's shaped how you approach deals today? We're in a different environment today. How do you approach deals today?
Well, we're very client centric, right? We're really
Yep.
trying. Once we have a client, we want to keep that client for life. Okay,
Yep.
and a lot of times that means if that client wants to switch asset classes from, wherever they traditionally have been in, if they want to, get rid of their multifamily and go into office, for example, then that broker or that agent brings in that other asset type help. They bring in the office people, help them locate the office, but that client stays the point of contact for that client.
Hmm.
And what it's done is it's expanded their revenue streams, right? They don't have to hand them off, and instead of getting a referral fee or whatever, they're staying in the deal, and even if it's a limited or shared commission type of deal, it expands how many deals they're doing, right?
Right. Right.
And that
Hmm.
has worked well for to keep revenue flowing for our our agents. So
Nice. Nice. Focus on the client and their needs. Um, what separates experienced operators from newer entrants in volatile type markets? What? Yeah. What's the main? What?
I think they're every deal we call it has hurdles and hair on the deal we call it, right? And the more
Yeah. Yeah.
experienced ones anticipate this more than the newer agents. They know it's part of the animal. They expect it, something to come up, so they're not overwhelmed. Okay, and they find
Sure.
solutions quicker typically than
Yeah.
the newer experienced people, right? Because it's just that they've had more goes, more what I call game time and
Yeah.
experience at finding the solutions. And so I would say that the mere fact of coming over and putting out fires and hurdles when they arise is the difference between and how quickly they can do that. It is the
Okay.
biggest difference I've seen.
Nice. And what mistakes do operators keep repeating? This is a message for all operators here. We're all human, right? What
Yeah.
mistakes do operators keep repeating?
Well, I think we tend to look at things a little bit more short-sighted. They want that deal, right? And if they focus on the client saying, hey, look, if this isn't a fit for this client, I'll find him something else. Okay? But trying to hold the deal that a client has already basically mentally passed on and trying to keep them in the deal, that's a mistake because it sends the wrong message to a client, and that's how they end up losing clients. And it might
Right.
not happen right away, but if they stay focused, we never try to talk a client into a deal or staying in a deal.
Yeah.
If they tell us that, hey,
Hmm.
Steve, this doesn't work, this isn't, I'm not comfortable, then we said, fine, tell us what you can't want the deal more than the client. And
Yeah.
that happens, you've lost a
Hmm.
client.
Okay. Okay. So, um, at Oxbridge International, you're working across multiple asset classes. What is your core strategy as the CEO, Steve?
I want to make sure that, as all of our people, whatever asset class they're in, that they are well equipped on that. By that means, do they have the experience in it? And if they don't, then we will put someone on that team, whether it's inside the company or outside the company, to assist
Yep.
them.
Okay.
That's
All
the
right.
most important.
Yeah. And what kinds of opportunities are you guys focused on most right now
We're, we're really
in
focused
California
we do
or
a lot
national?
of land.
Yeah.
We do a lot of land,
Yes.
and we're really focused right now on municipalities, conservation groups that are self-funded versus individuals, right? So
Okay.
these groups have different motivations, different missions, and they're usually a little longer to close, but the probability of closing are much higher.
All right. Okay. Um, and how do you position your firm in a competitive market like Silicon Valley? How do you position yourself there?
It's still networking, it's still people business, right? All of our people have built great networks over their careers,
Hmm.
and they get the cooperation from all the, I call them all the big five. We got five major, national global firms in our marketplace. But it's knowing who the players are and working with them. And we respect, the biggest thing I think that's been is we respect broker relationships. So if we know a client comes to us and we say, well, Joe over at that firm has represented that client for 10, 15 years, we'll call Joe and we'll say, hey, Joe or Mary, your client called us. They've got an interest in this. Reach out to them. That goes a long
Right.
way in our industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Okay. And you've also worked closely with international investors, particularly from Asia. And what are the Asian investors really focused on here in U.S. real estate? What is
that's a
their
great
buy box here right now?
That's a great question, Bill, because a lot of people don't ask that. They are much longer term visionary investors than we traditionally are domestically. Okay, most of the groups we work domestically, they're going to look at a 5 or 10 year hold. Our clients here,
Yeah.
they're looking at 50-year holds, right? From Asia, and
Yes. Wow.
they want key properties, right? And they feel in
Hmm.
the long run the prime properties are still going to appreciate in value and generate the highest revenue, right? And they look at it from a much longer term basis. So,
I see. I see. Okay.
and their criteria
Yeah, that's
changes.
some great,
Yeah.
great insight from you, as a successful leader of a very good brokerage out there, great brokerage. So, um, how do how do their investment strategies differ from domestic investors? Now, you've already brought out that they're more long-term focused. Are there any other differentiations here between
Yeah.
foreign and domestic?
Yeah, because they know that everything has a useful life, right? Every building has got a useful life. So they're typically more drawn to newer constructed assets, okay? Um,
Yeah, yeah,
because they're looking at it at a much longer term hold, right? Um, when are
yes,
they going to have to replace a roof? When are they going to have to replace or refurbish the inside of a hotel or whatnot? So they want newer constructed assets have a higher appeal to them because of that long-term vision,
yep.
right? They want it to last as long as it can,
Hmm.
right? So that's one of
Wow.
them,
Okay.
and yeah.
Yeah. All
Other
right.
thing would be a
And in
geographical
general,
assets. Go ahead.
yes. Okay.
I was
What
going
kind
to
of
say the
trends are
other
you
thing
seeing
is
in? Go
trends.
ahead.
Um,
Yeah.
we're still fighting the old cap rates of yesteryear, pre-pandemic cap rates, right? That sellers
Hmm.
were able to get when money was in the 3.5 or roughly sub 4% interest rates. They're still wanting those type of cap rates when now the capital is twice that amount, right, for investors.
Yeah.
That's been the biggest challenge, right? Is educating ownerships as to really what the going cap rates have to be in order for these assets to trade. So,
I see. I see. Okay. And you're a trained negotiator. What is the best and biggest, the biggest misconception people have about negotiating real estate deals at the level that you do?
it's more of an art, I think. We keep putting into this thing. I
Hmm.
just mentioned it on our office call, half an hour ago. There is no room for emotions in business or negotiations, and it's very difficult to sometimes remove that from the equation, whether it's you or your client. And so, what we try to do, what we train
Hmm.
our people to do, is that if those emotions start to dictate decision making, you need to step away. Your client needs to step away. You need to step away and have a cool down period. Um, and that to me is
Mm.
removing the emotions out of it is very key, because then you get to stay focused on really what the true issues are, right? And not so much egos or
Uh-huh.
anything else that comes into play.
Mm. Okay, so like the cooling off period that you mentioned, which in general, would you say to take more time in negotiations in general?
Just I'd say leave the emotion out of your decision making, right? Especially in commercial,
Yeah,
we're very numbers driven, right? Um,
yeah,
and we got deals right now that we're negotiating, and buyers and sellers get emotional, right, on certain things.
yeah.
You need to be able to separate those emotions from kind of the facts and really what the main issues are. And so, if you could keep that for your clients, keep them focused on really what the issue is, that's the key for a negotiator, is to keep them focused on really what the factors are, that are, the hiccups in the deal.
Is that what separates a good negotiator from a great one?
Absolutely, absolutely. Someone
Absolutely.
that can
Okay.
keep the calm of the storm, right? Yeah.
Okay. And what could you get into say one principle that you apply in every deal? You mentioned, keeping the emotion out, but do you have a principle that you apply in every deal? Um, is it total client focus? What is it?
It's really, first of all, really understanding what your client's goal is. And sometimes they tell you what it is, and sometimes you got to figure it out, right? Because what they tell you and what it really is might not be the same
Okay.
thing. So, really determining what the client's goal is really going to be at the heart of the deal. And once you figure out what their goal
Okay.
is, then you're going to look at your position and say, how do I get, how do I help them accomplish their goal here? And what can I do? And
Mhm.
there's been some clients that, you know, their goal, one, either they're not sharing it with us, or two, they don't want to listen to our strategy on how to achieve the goal. And we basically tell them at
Oh.
that point that, I'm not the best pick for you. If you're not going to listen to me, I'm of no value to you. Okay,
Mm.
it's
Mm.
it's very similar that if they went to a doctor and the doctor tells you, you got to stop smoking and eating red meat, and you say, nah, I don't think so. I'm going to keep doing it. Well, the doctor goes, okay, keep smoking, keep eating red meat, and I'll find another solution for you. It doesn't work that way. If you're not going to take their advice, then they're of no benefit to you. We
Mm.
feel it the
Mm.
same way. If we got to be a benefit to our clients, and they got to be willing to accept our guidance.
Yeah. Okay. Um, and again, what are you seeing right now in the market? Where are the opportunities and where are the risks right now?
There is there's great opportunity in a lot of this debt that's going to be coming due. These CMBS loans that are going to be resetting, that were put out there in 2018, 2017, when rates were at 3.25%, and they were 10-year due dates, right? Those are
Yeah.
all going to reset in these next 24 months, and that's going to be huge. There's going to be huge opportunities for self-funded investors that don't need to go out and get capital from traditional sources right now. So
Okay.
family funds, that's going to be huge, because the what they can pull up assets for is going to be way below replacement cost on some of these deals.
Mm.
And there's going to be huge amount of wealth shift, I think, in the next 24 months.
Nice. Nice. Okay. So, and where do you see the risks? Where are the biggest risks in the next year or two?
The biggest risk, I think, are with ownerships thinking that rates are going to drop tremendously and they're going to get the old cap rates that they were getting before and they're going to wait it out. I think that's the biggest risk because
Okay.
I think that whatever we could get them now is probably going to be more than what we could get them when all these other properties start coming to market.
Hmm. Okay. Don't wait to the last minute. Um, okay. And you've also led a $16 million capital campaign for family supportive housing. What drove you to get involved at that level to support this? And what does this mean to you personally?
I had a family member that was the fund development director for them, and they called me in to review a contract with their developer. And I went in simply to review a contract for them. That led to being asked to be on the board, which I agreed. And then within a few months of that, they made me chairman of the board of directors because it was going to involve overseeing the development of the new complex on top of raising the capital needed. And we had experience in the development field that the board needed at the time. So,
Okay, all right. And how do you think this and this obviously fit into your wheelhouse? You're on the board of directors of this now. What is your outlook on entry level housing or essentially affordable housing? This is an important topic. We are so short of this everywhere in the country. Doesn't no matter where you go.
yeah.
What do you see for the future in this, and how can investors get involved in this industry and make a profit?
So I think the idea of affordable housing in California is oxymoron. There, I don't think there is affordable housing. I know what I bought my first house for, and those days are long gone.
Yeah.
I think that you need to build mechanisms to make it more, instead of looking at the price point of the house, because that's not going to attract investors. Okay. I think what you need to look at is the funding sources because these first time investors or first time homeowners are not paying cash, they're funding it. I remember when my
Yeah.
father bought his first house, there was a Calvet loan, at 2.7%. I think that there's going to have to be mechanisms such as that for first time home buyers that are way, way below market rates for them to get in there and afford it. If you take a $800,000 house right now at a 6.5% interest rate on a 30, those payments are extremely high versus, if you put them at a 2.5% interest rate, that makes it somewhat affordable for them, right? It makes it comparable
Yeah.
to what they're renting and now they can own. And so I think that it's going to have to come from the capital stack, not so much, lowering the cost because cost to build and material is not going down, labor
Mhm.
cost and everything else.
Will we see benefits as AI gets adopted across the board in certain areas of title work, ways that we can lower costs moving ahead? Do you foresee that improving the situation, or is that just a panacea?
AI is here and now and very, very active in the commercial industry. I can tell you right now, I don't know any firm that's going to be able to survive without AI moving forward. They got to learn to implement it. We use it very heavily, from analyzing
Hmm.
different revisions of stuff. You can drop it in there and compare it instantly, which used to take hours, if not days. Um, and the more you build on it, it's compounding knowledge, right? It knows what you've done, it knows where you want to go with it. But it helps on
Hmm.
cutting down on legal fees. You're never going to eliminate attorneys reviewing contracts, but you could definitely give them a much cleaner and concise outline for them to develop it with AI. Um, and AI doesn't forget clauses, doesn't leave things out. So AI is tremendously going to be beneficial, and I think not so much eliminating, but being able to increase the workload and the number of deals that happen.
Okay. Okay. Great. Um, yeah, you've practiced martial arts. We're getting into a whole different subject matter here. You've practiced martial arts for over 40 years now, Steve. And how has that discipline influenced your career?
I tell my instructors all the time that it's given me a great life, a very comfortable life because of the disciplines, and I have applied it all. My daughter works with me. She's the president of our company. She's gotten tired of hearing all these examples, right? But martial arts, one of the biggest things was you had to remain calm, right? In any situation, and control your emotions. Otherwise, other people control you. And that's the same thing that we've applied in business. You got to control the emotions. Otherwise, they will control you and control the deal. So the lessons learned throughout, martial arts, I've applied through my whole career. And it's, not just the discipline, but the focus and attention to details, right? And the fundamentals. You never want to, you got to always stick to the fundamentals. You never diverse from those. So,
Mm.
yeah, I
So
keep
that,
telling everyone, I'm
mm,
just a student
that
still. I'm constantly learning. So,
and here you are, CEO, have been high up in the industry for a super long time, with a lot of experience, and has that attitude, that kind of humble attitude and adherence to discipline, in fact, has that been one of your successes to your longevity in this industry?
well, then I love what I do, Bill. I just
Okay,
love
there
what
you
I
go.
do, right? And
Yeah.
I love the challenge of the deals. I love the
Mhm.
people I work with, and I've been real
Yeah.
lucky to surround myself with some really good people. And uh, we all have ups and downs, but in any career, and but I think they're all needed, right? I think you need those down cycles to really appreciate the up cycles and the benefits
Yeah.
that this career gives to you.
Yeah. What would you tell somebody that's entering commercial real estate today? What would be your biggest takeaway, biggest piece of advice that you could give someone just starting out today?
Look at it from a long-term perspective. Don't look at it for short-term gains, okay? Look at it from a long-term perspective of where this could take you in 5, 10, 15 years from now. And if you're looking for short-term rewards, it might not be the place for you or the career for you.
Mm,
Because it takes a long
hmm.
time to ramp up in this business and build those connections before they really start to pay off sometimes. And there's always exceptions to those rules. We have some new young people that get in, and they, the one or two deals are sizable deals, and they think every deal's going to be like that, and it gives them a false sense of reality, right? But for the most part, if they think at it from a
Mm.
more long-term basis, then what they're going to do is they're going to continue to grow their experience and their skill levels because they're going to be in it for the long haul, right?
Nice, nice. Well, there you go. What stands out here? It's your combination of experience, discipline, global perspective, and you've seen the market from every angle. So I want to thank you so much, Steve, for taking the time to share that with our listeners. And your perspective here is so important from someone who's been in the trenches for the time that you have and the experience that you have in the industry. And just one last thing, what does your crystal ball say for commercial real estate in the next 5 years? Where are we going to be 5 years from now before we break off here?
I really think that automation and AI is going to reshape all of the asset classes
Oh,
tremendously. I think going forward, you're going to see a lot more remote type of outlying areas getting developed, and because the land's going to be cheaper, and they don't have to worry. It'll be fully automated. They don't have to worry about housing and other infrastructure. So I think that we're going to start seeing outlying areas start to really develop a lot more than we have in the past 25 years. So,
okay. From the influence of AI and the technology in general. Yeah.
right.
All right, Steve, thank you so much here for sharing with our listeners. Yeah, you've got that
More than welcome.
experience and perspective people need to hear. So thank you. Thank you
You're
so
welcome, Bill.
much
And
for
thanks for
being
having
on
me.
today. All righty.